Greetings and welcome to Office Hours. If you are new here and you want to learn a little bit more about what we do, you can head over to officehours.global where we answer your questions 7 days a week. So if you are got any questions and you happen to be watching the replay, you can also head over to askofficehours.global where you get a chance to submit your questions. We'll typically answer them within a day or two. And remember, if you are watching producers, go ahead and submit your questions now. You can vote them up or down because this show is driven by you. And speaking of show, Alexander, let's get into it.
First question this morning is from Mark Giuliani from Washington, D.C. Can we discuss the technology that went into the production of the Harris Town Hall with Oprah? They had a live audience with a Zoom audience coming in via monitors that look like the live audience.
Alex?
Yeah, so let's take a look at what we saw here. So this is from the and I would say that I think that this is probably one of the best versions of hybrids I've seen so far. So what you're seeing here as you look at this is what looks like some version of Zoom tiles. So we don't know if that was actually tiles. This feature definitely isn't there, but it definitely feels like it would have been something like that. So basically you have an LED wall here. It looks like the LED wall might have been rocked back, but what's interesting is that you'll see that these tiles up here in the front are getting smaller as they go back. So it's kind of simulating a people sitting in the stands kind of thing. Which I think is just a fascinating use of that. And so within the round, this is something that we started doing about a decade ago, and it just is a great feel. One of the advantages of being in the round, it is a little bit of a challenge. Now, one of the things that we've done or where we've looked at is we don't usually put chairs quite like this because it means that there's more people these people are kind of occluded the whole time. We've also looked at we haven't done it yet for a show, but putting this on a turntable so that it slowly turns a couple degrees a second, or a degree or a couple degrees a minute. To move all the way around. I don't think they did that here because they want to match they want to control the cameras. But what you have here is this really nice, these sections that can easily see a lot of the folks that are there, as well as really feel very close. This is a couple hundred people, and no one is more than 30 or 40 feet away from the subjects, which is really kind of an amazing thing to look at. But the zoom, as far as the zoom goes, you have that. You have the ad in there. Now, if you look at, you'll see them kind of just being cut into the show. Let's see if I can find it here. There you go. You can see them in the background. These rounded corners and the way this is laid out definitely feels like a, and look at that, Star Wars. Oh, no, it's not. It looks like Star Wars. It's just the name. You can see that they have, you have a lot of different people there that are all part of it. Now the other thing that they did here, so you can see a better shot of that, and it just really feels like it, but we don't see that feature yet in tiles. Wouldn't be uncommon for things to be there. Now here are your individuals coming in. Now this is a really interesting piece. So most likely, our guess is that if I was doing this, and I don't know what they did, but if I was doing this, of course, this would be ZoomISO, bringing folks in. It doesn't look like they leave on some hotel. Doesn't look like they did too much work on the camera work. I probably would have done a little more for a show this big. Again, here, lots of web cameras again, and maybe that's what they wanted it to feel like.
What would you have done, Alex, if you said you would have done a little bit more? What
I would have sent a
been?
team. We for high profile events like this, we sent teams. So now we would not necessarily we used to send teams with Super 35 sensors and everything else. The client that we worked with at the time didn't want to look that good, so we moved to handy cams. But they still look a lot, at the time they looked a lot better than these look like mostly the cameras that were in the computer. They don't look like I would have sent at least typically what we do, you can see that there's some like eye line issues here, and that usually tells you that they're probably on their laptop or something else. A lot of times we would do things that make it look like it's probably a webcam, but it would be a teleprompter with even just a teleprompter with a webcam, like that Elgato one would be something that we might think about as far as a quick setup to make sure that we're getting eye lines correct. A slightly better webcam like a Link to just tighten that experience up. So those are the kind of things that we probably would have done to make that actually work. But they brought it in so that you have all these individuals there that are coming in, and that's definitely lit. Like this is if you look at her eye, she's on a webcam here, but this is a large source that's right off. This is, and it may have been something that they all decided individually to do. I can see how J-Lo would probably bring somebody in to make her system look better. This one looks a little bit more, these other ones, now you can see he's got actually a pretty big light here too. You can see from it, a lot of times you can key in on their eyes to figure out exactly what it is, but he's got a large key light that's there, that's right over him. So this is not, this one could be anything. This one, maybe some kind of light there. You can see that it's probably a larger key light. So it just really depends on them, but they were still trying to, I think, keep it. My guess is they're trying to keep it, what do they call it? Scrappy looking. One of the things that's interesting here is this cutout here. Now this would have been, normally what we would do here is you would have to, I don't know exactly how they did this one specifically, but, it'd be great to see this kind of feature in tiles at some point where you could drop a mask in that would just turn off tiles. They might have had to mask this individually. So you build a mask around the tiles. Since they're not moving around, the tiles themselves aren't, you could build a mask here that just cut the certain tiles out and then mask this over. But I felt like this was a great treatment of the guest that was there to put them in. So it's really, really well thought out. You can see how they're used there, and here you can see it. I thought it was interesting. I think that they had some kind of simulated brick here to make it feel like it was matching up with the brick that was down here, which I thought was an interesting choice. Not bad, just interesting. This was, I felt like this one worked okay. But here's the problem with this. This was the goofiest part of the show, which was this kind of forced perspective of the two of them talking to each other. This rarely works very well. And if they really wanted to make this work, they should have brought this camera down and this camera up, because her eye lines are going up like that, and so it was a missed opportunity to not have, all they had to do was swap these two. And this is the kind of thing that if you did enough rehearsals, someone would watch this and go, oh, she's looking up like this. We should put her here so that her eye lines match and look like she's looking at her. So it felt a little uncomfortable, in addition to the fact that it feels distorted. I used to think that this was cool, this kind of corner pinning or 3D effect, but it always makes the video feel very distorted, and I've learned not to like it. So that's, I think those are, you can see her, interacting. She's talking to a screen. So there she is. So this eye line works. So she's looking at that screen that's there. And, really, when you see these wide shots, you realize how many they had, probably 3 of them, like 6 total on both sides. And then they put these, and what happens is you have this one insert for her, and most likely the other insert that's being, because these aren't all inserts, this other one is for Oprah there. So that was I think that was well thought out, as far as that goes. So there you can see her just being able to look up and talk to people that are there. You can see but really putting in LED walls was not an, inexpensive solution to do that, to put those together. But anyway, I think that as we look at, I think we, regardless of politics or anything else, need to always pay attention to the state of the art, and that's the state of the art, right now, for what we do, of inserting that. So it's pretty cool.
Thank you. That's a great breakdown, Courtney.
Yeah, and maybe you could talk about that forced perspective look that they're using, where they kind of melded it into the physical set in the corners, because we all know that LED walls come in tiles, which really, you can't really put an oblique angle on the edges on them. So that's really a graphics effect. Maybe it's an Unreal Engine. I don't know. We don't know if, I think tiles will interface with Unreal Engine, won't it?
Yeah, it could be Unreal Engine. It could be some advanced version of tiles that we don't have yet. I mean, there's a lot of different options of what might have happened there. But I think that it could be done in Unreal Engine. I also think that they kind of matted this.
Yeah, if you look at the corners of them, if you get a close up of the corners, where you see that forced perspective look that makes it look like it's receded, that the screen is tilted back.
I think the LED wall itself may have receded as well. So but you can see that the LED wall.
If you get a straight on shot of it, you can kind of see. But that was it. Yeah, there. See the corners there, upper left and upper right corner. That screen is not tilting back. The screen is vertical, because all the sides of this of the images on it are vertical in respect, but the corners I think are images of that wall to make it looks like it's tilted back. So part of that, what looks like the edges outside the gray area are just graphics that blend in with the physical posts that are there on either side.
It very well could be. Which makes it even cooler, because it works, totally works to have that there. But I do think that then they have this effect that's going back there. Yeah, I think that you're right that it could be an LED wall there, and then you have this mortise that is kind of in front of that, which further sells the experience.
Yeah,
it's cool.
Jesse,
sorry, no, that's it.
Oh, Jesse.
So Alex, when you're working in the round with an audience like this, how much prep do you give the crowd, letting them know how to behave on camera and things like that?
We've definitely done a lot of those. Usually when we do them in the round, the crowd is pretty handpicked. So they're not just random people who came in off the street. We've done a lot of these and never had a problem with it. I know people worry about them doing distracting things, but what we usually find is if anything, they don't do anything. They freeze. They're afraid that they're going to screw something up. These are usually people who whatever's happening is very important to them. They take it very, very seriously. And if anything, it's hard to get them to animate. So it's more of prepping them to be, feel natural and do those things there. So, but again, I'm sure that someone could do something there. The other, I mean, what with any budget, what I would have done is I would have not put them on the ground. I would have put them on bleachers that went up, curved bleachers, and then had this extend from there. So that would be the next step for me, is to really have it feel more like a coliseum, where you basically have these nice curved. That would have been more expensive, but they seemed like they spent a lot of money on this in the first place. But yeah, having this go up and then having this feel like it's continuing that rather than going up and like this would have been to me the next level of what you're doing there, and it actually would put them more into that space. You do also pay more attention to people and this is with anything, you pay more attention to people behind the talent. So any close-ups on the talent, the people who you view that are going to be behind them, and this happens on stages, you pay a lot of attention to those folks, of who they are, and they're usually, they're close to the campaigns. They're not in the campaigns, but they're oftentimes close to the campaigns, or they raised a lot of money, or they did a bunch of other things like that.
And Alexander?
Question for Alex. I'm just curious, could you ballpark how much it would cost someone to do that type of production, like start to finish? I'm always curious about how, obviously it can't be cheap to do something like this.
I'd bid, if I looked at it now, I'd probably bid somewhere between 600 and 800,000. That'd probably be, that's really off the top of my head, but that's probably not a bad ballpark. You got a lot of set builds. You've got LED walls. The LED walls themselves, because remember, you're renting them for a couple of days. So the LED walls themselves are going to cost you tens of, like $80,000 to have the LED walls there for a couple of days at least. And that's not buying them, that's just renting them. You've got, you probably have a crew of 20 or 30 people there for days, building that up and rehearsing and doing everything else. But yeah, somewhere probably wouldn't be less than 500,000. It wouldn't be more than $1 million. I think that's probably it's a very wide range, but I'd have to think about it a little bit, but that'd probably be the range.
It's interesting, both Jesse and Alexander, just thinking about everything that went into this. I was trying to find the young lady. I think she's with South Asians for Kamala or for Harris. And the production, the pre-production, and the producers finding all these groups to bring them together. So as you said, the set build and all of that, but then also the talent part and getting people prepped and actually, she couldn't believe, she thought it was someone was spamming her by saying these folks are from the Harris and Oprah campaign. So it's just interesting, all the pieces.
Yeah, it would have taken a lot of work. And again, there's different ways of looking at it. They obviously wanted to, at least to some degree, make it look like people are coming in over their web cameras. There's kind of a call to Zoom look. I would have gone down the path of trying to make it look like it was just another broadcast connection. It wasn't, I might use Zoom, but I wouldn't have tried to make it look like I was using Zoom. I would have tried to make it look like I was using broadcast from wherever they are. So that's, but that, that's probably a creative decision, or they just didn't, when they sent something, it looks like they sent at least a kit to those, to everybody or something. But I would have probably done more.
Mark?
So my question would be, you have this hybrid event, it's in the round, you've introduced remote guests coming in. How do you handle the audio so that you're not getting feedback back through the mics that are there live on stage?
So there's a bunch of different ways of doing that. I mean, sometimes it's a person doing it, or it's definitely a person backing it up. But a lot of times what we're doing is we're using Dugan Auto Mix. And so what you do is you have for a lot of the ones that we've done in the past, you have a Dugan Auto Mix and what Dugan Auto Mix does is it tries to even things out. It tries to make sure that if one person is talking, it pushes all the other mics down. So if it sees one that's specifically a lot louder than the other ones, it tries to push the other ones down. And it's very powerful when you're doing roundtables. Having a Dugan Auto Mix will allow you to make sense of what otherwise would be a cacophony between all the mics being on, without having to manage that manually. So in this case, what we do is the Dugan Auto Mix is mixing between the offline mics, or the offsite mics, and the onsite mics. And so you're basically pushing, when someone's speaking, it's pushing the mics that are in the room down. When that person is speaking in the room, it pushes the remote mic down. And we found that to be fairly effective. It does take tuning. Like, it's not something that you just turn on. But we've tuned those in the past, and that's been a pretty successful solution for us.
And Alexander?
And just a quick thing too about Dugan Auto Mix. The default out of the box configuration works pretty well, but I just wanted to add on to what Alex was saying, because that is definitely key. Is that with Dugan Auto Mix, it has something called weighting. So for example, like Oprah would be the host and she would have priority. And then if there are audience mics or anything else going on, like Zoom audio, you can actually reduce the priority of those and have those pushed down even more, which would help in this kind of situation, especially when you got live speakers as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Next question.
Next question is from Paul Wallison in Austin, Texas. Who wins the heavyweight championship of mega phones, iPhone 16 versus Samsung S24?
Courtney.
Well, in the review that they did, that he pasted the link to in there, they gave the edge photographically to the iPhone. And I think, I think it's a matter of taste as to, color saturation. I kind of like more saturated color. They kind of like less. But one reason I wouldn't get the Samsung is because I hate these sharp corners. If you look at this on the Ultra, and it's only on their highest end flagship phone, Samsung Galaxy 24 Ultra. They went with these stupid sharp corners, which I hate because I always carry it in a holster on my waist, and you bend over and you get jabbed in the side by the sharp corner, or if you're carrying it in your hand, it's very uncomfortable. So I wouldn't get the Samsung Ultra just for that. I wouldn't get a iPhone because I like the AI features that I have now in my existing Galaxy phone that you won't get on Apple till next year, maybe. With all the photo editing, with all the magic AI photo editing and object removal. I don't know if that's done yet on the Apple, or at least it's not done locally. But you have it now on all the Android phones. So, but they gave it in that review, they gave it a slight edge to the iPhone over the 24 Ultra.
Alexander?
My personal preferences for platforms aside, all flagship smartphones from Apple and Samsung and Google, they're all really good. They all have incredible cameras. So it comes down to what platform do you actually want to be on. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of these kind of debates, like who's going to win the competition kind of thing, because they're all quite good. So just pick the one that you're used to and you'll have a pretty good experience.
Next question.
Next question is from Mike Edwards in Brooklyn, New York. Morning, everyone. When deciding on font file types for graphic playback on live virtual productions, When does the panel choose .otf versus TTF versus WOFF font files? And share your reasoning,
Alex?
please. Thanks.
For me, most of the time, OTF and TTF are interchangeable. Like, I don't really think about it that much. If it's, Apple will, my Mac will see both of those. Most things will see, Windows will see both of those. OTF technically has more advanced features than TTF. It's a little bit smaller than TTF. OTF was created by Adobe and Microsoft, and TTF was created by Apple and adopted by Microsoft in the, I don't know, 80s or 90s. So they're, they both work on both of the platforms. I have a tendency when I download stuff to use TTF, but it's just out of habit over decades. I don't really think about it that much, but OTF should work just fine if on either platform as well. And again, it probably has, it's slightly smaller and with more features actually. So OTF is probably a superior file format, but on average, none of us would need those features, so it doesn't really matter. WOFF is a web font, so it is really designed for delivering fonts on the web. So it's more compressed, and it gives you more control over, or it's more common to see on web pages. So those are kind of how you think about those three.
Next question.
Next question is from Douglas Carmichael. Merging Technologies is introducing Dante support for their Anubis desktop audio interface as opposed to Ravenna only. Would anyone see any use cases in their Dante networks for this box?
Alexander.
Well, I'm not a huge Dante user, but I just want to speak to Merging Technologies just a little bit, and I'm just going to show you what this thing looks like. It's very similar in format and capabilities to something like a universal Apollo interface. It has incredibly high specs, a very high dynamic range. So Merging Technologies is basically known for making these types of audio interfaces with really high-end analog to digital converters, 140 dB dynamic range. They have built-in DSP processing on the box, so you can run plugins like the Universal Audio Apollo Solos. And this one even supports DSD audio. So it supports a lot of really high-end specs. Obviously, adding Dante support is really useful, too, for a lot of people, because I think there are more people using Dante than Ravenna anyways in a lot of productions. So I can see how they'd be very useful. Compact box, really powerful processing. So they make good products.
Alex?
Mickey says he'd rather use other things than deal with the interface from Anubis. I haven't used it, so that's just something coming in from our esteemed crew in the panel, or in the chat.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gabriela Shesho Mistiera in Sault Marie is asking, with USB-C on the iPhone, does that Mixpre-3 and Atem work right over that USB connection? How complete of an office hours setup can you do on an iPhone or iPad or Droid?
Alex?
It depends. I think that people have been successful with the iPad on going, seeing the Atem. I'm not 100% sure. It's on my list of things to work on, which I haven't done yet. We've had some trouble with the Mixpre-3 and many audio interfaces in the latest versions of iOS. So on the latest versions of 17 and now on 18, we've had inconsistent connections between the Mixpre-3. The Atem will not connect to the phone, but the inconsistent connections with the Mixpre-3. And so I have backed into using the USB-Pre too, which is a much lower level connection to a computer, and actually more expensive than the Mixpre-3. It's a much older device, and I happen to just have some laying around, and so that has worked perfectly. But the Mixpre-3, I've had hit and miss. It was working for quite some time, and then recently when I tried to use it, it was not working. So that's still something that we're kind of trying to figure out what the issue is.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois asks, Anker has this little power hub that I'm going to use as a tailgate power source. What types of specs would I need to make it a production power?
Courtney?
Well, that depends on how complex your production is. It's listed as a 250 watt hours, so it'll power supposedly 250 watts for 1 hour, 256 watts for 1 hour. And it depends on how much wattage is lost, whether you're using, plug-in transformers or the inputs. You've got two AC outputs from an inverter. And then you've got multiple DC outputs, a 12-volt car socket. You've got a couple of 5-volt USB-As and a USB-C that can probably do up to 20 volts. So you have to calculate all those different voltages, all the different current consumption to figure out how long it's going to last. It does have that convenient meter on the front there that probably will show you, I'm not sure because I haven't used one, probably will show you the percentage of battery that you have left. So you could try it out, plug all your production gear into it and let it run, use it like recording or lights or cameras or whatever you're going to use. And let it run from full charge and time it and see exactly how long it's going to take. Because that's going to be your major limitation is the amount of wattage that you need to pull and the amount of time you need to pull it. So do a test first off and do it a couple of times to form the batteries and then plug it up full charge and let it go. Things with motors will run it down faster. LED lights shouldn't be too much of a burden on it, although lighting can pull a lot. So depends on what you're going to be running.
Next question.
From the QR code, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado says, what are the advantages and disadvantages to a physical audio interface versus software, such as what comes with a mic? Yeah, so with a physical audio interface, it's obviously a piece of hardware in front of you with tactile, controls on it that you can easily grab at arm's length. So that's always really nice to have. Now, a lot of audio interfaces today will have built-in processing inside the box that can be controlled over software. So these need to be connected to a computer anyway over USB. Now, of course, there are microphones like the MV7 Plus that have very little controls on it, but most of it is done in software. But the cool thing about something like that particular microphone, the controls that you set inside the software are stored inside the chip inside the microphone. So there's pros and cons of both. Obviously, like the MV7 Plus is just a single mic. It's very easy to set up. There's no physical controls. And also the software makes it easier for you to dial in your mic gain. And a lot of interfaces now have this auto gain functionality where it'll just listen to you talk. It'll capture a sound profile, and then it'll approximate the right level of gain that microphone needs for your voice so that you got lots of headroom.
I prefer to have physical controls on a mixer or a microphone rather than the app, because you always got to load the app and you got to worry about what platform you're going to be using it with. Do you have the right app for that platform? And does it have all the same functions on your phone as it does on your PC or your Mac? And, it's just more of a hassle. If you're doing something else, if you're in the middle of a Zoom call or something, you don't want to have to be fighting with that separate interface and bringing that to the front or bringing that up to adjust your microphone and bringing it back down. It's much easier if you can just grab a little knob on the microphone itself or a control on the microphone itself. Plus all those digital signal processing stuff that is offered by most of those companion programs that come with these microphones, take away from your system. Your system is doing that digital signal processing usually off the mic in your CPU. So it's gonna your system's gonna take a hit performance wise just in running those things. Even if you're not using them, they might be taking some memory and using that as well. So I prefer.
And Alexander?
Just a couple other things too. So for example, there are companies that make audio interfaces that are totally like just no controls on it or almost no controls. Like my Soundcraft UI24 is a 24 channel digital audio mixer that is rack mount. There's very few controls. So I have no physical faders. It's far away from me here. And I can control it from a web interface, which is really cool. So it's not taking up any processing power. I just have to open up a web interface and I can control it all there. And the other cool thing about it being a digital mixer is I can recall and store scenes, which have all my presets in there. And of course, BitFocus Companion. So if you have a Stream Deck, there's an app called BitFocus Companion, and I can actually control my audio interface through that. So I still get some physical tactile controls with the piece of hardware, with the Stream Deck in front of me. So there are advantages of that because it also doesn't take up a lot of space. If you have a big console, it's going to take up a lot of space because you need the space for all the faders. So there are pros and cons to both.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gabriella Chesso Mistiera and Susse Marie is asking, helping a teacher with a cooking demonstration, if trying to stream or record cooking and they start blender, processor, frying, juicer, or grinder and can no longer be heard, are there any silent versions of these appliances or doing this?
Alexander?
Well, you know, I'm not an expert cook, so maybe there are some appliances that are quieter than others. This is probably where something like Dugan Automix can really help. Now, if you had two open microphones, like if you mic'd the appliances, I've actually never done a cooking show, so I'm just thinking out loud here. Maybe if you had two mics, one on the presenter and one on the appliances, you could reduce the priority of the secondary microphones so Dugan just really pushes that down in the mix. You'd have to have a lot of processing to do this, to try to mitigate and minimize the amount of noise. So basically have that audio ducked down below the presenter when those appliances are going.
Jesse?
What you want to do for things like blenders is a pre-blend before you start recording. Follow the non-noisy path until it gets to the noisy point, and then the host says, well, what we would do now is blend it for 3 minutes on high. We've already done that, so here it is pre-blended.
And then just coming in from the comments that Mickey says, good mic placement is also key. Next question.
Marielle Jusha Miera and Wablo asks, Alex, congrats on the LP show last week. It was amazing. How did you choose the cameras to use and which one to show on the stream? How did the big softbox over the stage
We
work?
will have to bring that question back for the next time when Alex is on the show. So we'll get that taken care of. Next question.
Kyle Nestum Plymouth is asking, recommendation on a webcam with external controls via a remote or similar corporate all-hands meeting in a highly regulated industry. Installing webcam control software is not an option.
All right. Anyone want to take that one, or will we have to? We may need to put that on for another one. So Kyle will need to. Oh, Courtney's going to take a stab at it.
I'm just saying that's a pretty tall order. To be able to have remote control without installing software is pretty difficult. There might be, I was going to suggest the 360 link, the Insta360 link, because it's a PTZ and it does have remote control over it. And I think it does behave with some of the remote controls that are built into camera controls on some PCs or some devices. But if you're in a corporate network, you don't know if they're limiting communications over those ports that it's using. So that's a tough order. It'd take an IT person to work that out, to be able to remotely control the webcam externally. Alex would have a better answer for this because he's done a lot more of this, but maybe not in a corporate situation, more in a situation where he has complete control over the client side of where the webcam is going to be plugged in. If you don't have complete control over the network that the webcam is plugged into, it's going to be pretty tough to remotely control.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gabriella Chesso Mistiera and Susse Marie. Thoughts about AI-based eye contact correction in Windows? Should more apps like Zoom leverage this, or is it too uncanny?
Jesse?
You don't want to do this because you want to be honest about your presence with the person with whom you're speaking. Nothing more to say on that topic.
Courtney, go ahead.
I've looked at it and it actually does work. Although, it doesn't become too uncanny if the software is done right, where it looks away every now and then, looks back, or looks down and looks back. It might work for you. I think it can be pretty invisible, and AI is getting better and better at modifying your face in real time. So,
and Alexander?
Just no. Please don't do this. I hate when people try to look for unnecessarily complex technology solutions to a simple problem. Just get a teleprompter and look people direct in the eye for real. That's all.
Next question.
From the QR code, Cindy Drozda in Erie, Colorado. I heard that StreamYard has been sold or will be soon. Does anyone know what's happening with them?
Oh, any takers on StreamNet? Now, were they not a couple years ago? Were they not acquired by someone? Is that what she's referring to potentially? That they were brought in? Does anyone have? Because I believe it was Hoppin that pulled them into that world a couple of years ago. And so I don't know. So Cindy, we'll have to come back to you with that response to see if they, when you say sold, because again, I believe it was a couple years ago that they were acquired. And so, which there may have been some changes, or just depending on what that acquisition looked like, what that meant for the founders and the team. Typically, when an acquisition takes place, they'll still keep on the rest of the team as they make transitions, and then people potentially make a shift after that. So that's what I last knew of. Courtney?
I was just going to say I looked it up, and a company called Bending Spoons acquired them. Apparently, it went through, has been approved. They are to acquire StreamYard. So whether or not they're going to do a good job of it, a good question. I don't know if I'd trust a company called Bending Spoons, but that's who's going to own StreamYard from here on out.
So that's interesting because yes, as Craig says in the comments as well, yes, they were 3 or 4 years ago, they were acquired by Hopin. So it'd be interesting to look up and see what has taken place since then. Next question.
Liberty White in Atlanta, Georgia, and here on the panel, looking for recommendations for bringing in Wi-Fi hotspot for a 35 to 40 person event. Will a T-Mobile 5G router suffice?
And I'll just jump in. So yeah, so it's an event. I don't have all of the details. It was a coordinator which reached out to me, and it's been a minute since we've had to bring in Wi-Fi. And if we are, that's through the hotel or the location, and this is the actual place needing to supplement and support the attendees that will be coming. So curious if that hotspot will suffice.
So
Mark?
we have done this several times. One of the things you have to do is go there ahead of time, make sure there's good cell coverage because it is actually going out to a cell tower. You will find, though, that as people get there for the actual event itself on the day of the event, your bandwidth may go down because the towers can only handle so many people connecting to them. What we've done is use T-Mobile as a hotspot for home Wi-Fi, and it works, but we don't use it for events. We just use it when we know there's a few people there, and it works really well. We've been able to do things for long-term over that type of connection. But as soon as you get a lot of people there, your bandwidth's going to slip.
That's a good call. Jesse?
Quick question about this. Is the Wi-Fi router for your 30 to 40 guests, or is it just for presenters and hosts?
I believe it's for everybody in attendance. So I was just curious as any recommendations if that doesn't suffice, what would be another alternative to that?
I'd be really cautious about putting 40 people on one wireless 5G router. That's like designed for one person's mobile phone. It will buckle. People will have problems. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe more. Just throw money at the problem until it goes away.
Copy that. So yeah, that was just one that's like, oh, I know that it's just been some time, and not just looking at, okay, is that calling in and saying, hey, can someone drop a line? I don't know if that's necessarily something that, like, effort wise, that they're looking to invest into. So, but thank y'all. Next question.
From the QR code, Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois asks, I saw a question, but it got deleted, and I really wanted to hear Andy talk about compression too. I don't know if it got copied right, but I really want to know how to use compression with Zoom tools best.
Jesse?
I wish we had the original question because there's a lot of context that we're missing from this. Are you talking about audio compression, video compression, compression before you go into Zoom? What stage of compression and what kind of compression are we looking at? If you're in the audience, I might be stepping on your toes a little, Liberty, but if he's in the audience, I hope he would, chuck in another question with the context, because a lot of the panel doesn't know which question we're talking about.
Potentially when Andy was on, but yes, please bring that question back with a little bit more context for us. Next question.
Scott Mueller in Germantown, New York. I'm looking at buying an M3 MacBook Pro Max. Is it wise to wait a month considering we are coming into October?
Courtney?
Yeah, it's always wise to wait a month because they usually announce laptops and updates to their computer line in October in Apple. So especially the M3 Max, and of course, as soon as they announce the new models, and usually the new models are about the same price as the old models. So that means the old models, if they're going to continue to carry them online and in the store, are going to drop in price. So you may be able to save $100 or a couple of $100 on the old models right after they announce the new models. So if you can wait 2 weeks, the exception to that would be if you have a live event coming up where you need it for, and you can charge it off against the client, as an expense, then go ahead and buy it. You can always sell it after the event and buy a new one later if you like the improvements that were made that they announce in October.
Jesse?
We never wait. We drive every piece of hardware that we buy into the ground. And when you look back, we've got an iMac that I use 4 hours a day for editing and rendering. 4 hours a day, every day for 7 years. It doesn't matter what it cost at that point. It doesn't matter if a newer model came out a week later or a month later. It just, the budget's amortized if you drive your equipment into the ground like we do.
Next question.
From the QR code, Scott in Perth, Australia. If Synology moves to a subscription so you had to pay for DSM monthly, would that be a deal breaker?
Oh, we're Synology folks. Jesse?
I'm not a Synology folk, but if you're running a subscription, you really, really, really better be integral to our pipeline. We're burnt out on subscriptions at this point.
Next question.
Carly Johannesdottir in Fort Duchesne, Utah asks, philosophical question for Jeffrey and Courtney. Now that you have clearly mastered the art, how will you teach others to achieve perfect hair forever? What techniques and technologies do you use to transmit your knowledge to others in a practical sense?
Courtney? Oh, you're on mute, Courtney. As we're watching the demo here, but we need to hear you too.
I was just going to say, I find that a little carnauba wax works really good for hair management, and a light buffing, but I got to keep the glare down on this show. So I'll wear the hat to keep you guys from suffering from the glare back.
Thanks, Courtney. Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. Seems like Canva and Dall-E integrations in Chat GPT-4 keep failing when I input requests. Is anyone else having this issue?
Anyone else having issues with Dall-E and Canva? And Courtney?
Well, they're pretty high, especially Dall-E and GPT-4 has some pretty high guardrails on it. So it depends on your prompt that you're entering. You may find that it's failing because you're putting something illegal in your prompt, like, draw a picture of, name a celebrity or name the politician. It doesn't prevent, it doesn't allow generative art of politicians or celebrities who have been litigious or anything, that would be not suitable for work. So they're pretty high guardrails. So check to see if you're trying to make it generate something that it can't. If you want to do those kind of pictures, you might try Flux 0.1, which has lower or much lower guardrails on it that let you generate images of celebrities and people who are not allowed on the Dall-E and the Canvas platforms, GPT-4 platforms.
Next question.
This one's for me. I assume many of you use extension cables for your in-ear monitors. How do you secure your cable so that it doesn't get in the way?
Alexander, you want to just give some quick context, any additional context?
Yeah, I'm just looking for solutions. I found a better solution than what I had before. I just find that every time I move my chair, I end up rolling over the cable, which is incredibly annoying. So I have a low-profile mic arm over here. You can't see it, sort of out of frame, but what I did was my extension cable, I basically just made a giant loop, and then I used one of these little things to basically clip it to the cable to just kind of keep it out of the way. I'm still not 100% happy with it. I don't know if there's a truly perfect solution. So I'm just curious what everybody else is using.
Go ahead,
Well, I'm
Courtney.
using just a mini extension cable, and I have it draped behind my back. And the joint is right here at the end of the security cable. It's a right angle joint, and that keeps it from yanking out a little bit easier because it's not a straight pull on it. It pulls at about a right angle. And then if I need to leave for a second, I just take the end of the stretchy cord and pop it out of this. And this is a nice braided extension cord, and it's short. Keep your cable short so it can't reach the floor. If it can't reach the floor, I can't roll over it with the chair, and it won't be ruined or yanked out of my ear by moving my chair. So, and also the little stretchy part of the cord lets me know by pulling on my collar before I walk away and that I'm still attached to the extension.
Next question.
From the QR code, what is IP Relay and how do I use it for accessibility with my disability? Thanks.
IP Relay. Mark?
Well, I'm not an expert, but I just went to the FCC page, and IP Relay is uses the internet rather than TTY, which uses the phone lines. So it allows accessibility through the internet if you don't want to use the phone lines. And it goes on to say that it allows you to see more of what's going on and allows you to type. So it might benefit. I'm not familiar with the disability, so it may or may not benefit, but allows you to do the same thing, if not better, over the internet.
Alexander?
I didn't know about this, so I asked Chat GPT, and it says that, so basically what Mark said, but basically the use case for IP Relay is the user types a message, the person with the disability types a message using a computer or mobile device connected to the internet. The relay operator reads the message. So a relay operator receives the typed message, and then operator speaks the message. There's a response typed back. So I can see how that would be very useful.
Next question.
Next one's from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. How or what do you expect to see at the Canva Extend event, which is free in person September 25th in San Francisco and free online? And can someone from office hours go there and report back to us?
Go ahead, Jesse.
Well, I was honestly expecting to see AI, but when I got to the website, I was, let's take a look at what we're looking at. I was very pleasantly surprised at their program is much more about a platform, API, platform integration, workflows, things like that. So what we're expecting is a good 6 hours of content about what Canva's planning, what they're building, and how they hope their users will interact with the website and with design in general. Liberty, I feel like you use Canva more than I. What are you looking forward to in the next year of that platform?
So interestingly enough, Jesse, I saw that too. I was like, oh, it doesn't say anything AI, but I'm like, there's going to be some AI elements because a couple weeks ago I opened it up and it had me apply for some kind of pilot programs, AI related, and I had to fill in all the information. And I got so excited that it said you would not have been approved. So I'm interested to see what that program is that I did not get approved for. And yeah, so I still think there'll be an element of it. And they've just rolled out so much recently. I think part of that is not having that plastered everywhere because AI fatigue is real. Yes.
But
Next.
for
Oh, go ahead.
just a quick jump in quick. I feel like Canva is one of the best platforms where AI could be implemented because there's so much room for brainstorming on layouts, on color schemes, things like that, and then translating that directly into vector objects that you can adjust. It seems like there's a lot of room for AI, so it's the one platform I was really excited to see. What are you going to be doing with AI?
And you make an excellent point. Now they do have a lot of integrations. They still have a lot of work to be done, which is why this being the developers, more so the developers conference, that's why I'm like, they might have just not put it out there, but I still foresee that taking place because they need them to really continue to build those third-party elements that you can use within the platform. So I totally agree with you there. And pulling in Mickey from the comments, Mickey said, thank you for volunteering to cover the event in San Francisco. So potentially Paul will report back to us on that. Next question.
This one's for me. Are there any generative art tools that I can test that don't cost anything? Need to be able to upload a photo and prompt it to manipulate it. And I'll just say I tried ChatGPT, but it wanted me to pay for it. So,
yeah. Courtney, I know what Courtney's going to say. Go ahead, Courtney.
Well, you could use Copilot. It is free, limited form, built into the browser, in the Edge browser in Windows. This Flux is a good contender against Midjourney now. It's very accurate, and the demos I've seen of it are very good. It approaches the quality or even surpasses the quality of Midjourney, I think, in some situations. This website Zeniteq, Zeniteq, has an article on these 5 free websites to use Flux.1 for free, and most of them I think are using the Flux Schnell. There's 3 different types of Flux out there. There's Flux Pro, Flux Dev, and Flux Schnell. And Flux Schnell, you can generally try it for free. So if you go to this Flux AI it's fluxaiimagegenerator.com. That's a lot to type, but that's this website that I'm showing you right now. And you can see it does pretty well, and it's multimodal, so it allows you to upload a picture and work with that as a reference, and then make modifications to it. And it's very accurate. It really adheres, unlike Midjourney, where you'll give it a complex prompt with 4 different things that you want to see, and sometimes it'll get 2 out of the 4, or 3 out of the 4, or 1 out of the 4. But Flux generally adheres to the prompt fairly closely. So it's pretty accurate, delivers fairly believable and photoreal pictures and images of people, and has less guardrails. So you won't be flummoxed by, trying to create something that it thinks is, would get it in trouble.
And in our next hour, we do have Phil Palin, who is in the Adobe ecosystem. So he could potentially have some other suggestions around AI. He's just tested so many tools. So we're looking forward to that conversation.
Yeah,
Next
Firefly
question.
is looking great now these days.
But he also did ask for not paid, that you wanted to spend money. So we'll see what Phil has to say there. Next question.
Next question is from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. The copycats cometh. 3 Android phone makers announce iPhone 16s camera control buttons. Talk about it.
Jesse?
I feel like the main chatter when they announced their control button was that this was a feature that had been on previous phones from a year ago. And what I think is kind of what makes sense from a business perspective is Apple puts a whole lot of money behind promoting any idea or innovation they have. So it kind of makes more sense to announce your version of it after they have primed the pump. I had not heard about previous phones with this little feature. Apple did their bajillion-dollar marketing campaign, so now everybody knows about this little button over there, and then other people come in now that the pump is primed.
Alexander?
There was only one Elvis. That's it.
Next question.
Gordon Lake in Los Angeles, California. If someone is in Zoom with a phone or tablet, will ZoomISO pull 1080p from that device?
Go ahead, Mark.
So there's 2 levels to ZoomISO. There's the Lite and then there's the Pro. They both give you access to 1080p. The Pro version gives you access to more bandwidth, so you can handle more 1080p sessions. I don't know whether or not it'll bring in an iPhone and upgrade it, or a smartphone or a tablet up to that 1080, or if they stay at 720.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. OpenAI's Sam Altman and Apple's design legend Jony Ive have been secretly developing a new AI-powered device together. What could it be?
Jesse?
It'll be very thin, shiny, and it will have rounded edges.
Courtney.
And it'll have no ports on it whatsoever. That's all I know.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gabriella Chesso Mistiera and Sue St. Marie is asking, has anyone tried out the Compact Shure X2U XLR to USB audio interface?
Oh, it sounds like Courtney.
I have not tried. Alex is the one that has a whole bunch of those. So when you see him back on the panel, that would be a good time to bring this question back in. Maybe we can push this question back. I have the Pile equivalent of the X2U XLR to USB interface. And I've tried it, and it may be a little bit noisier. I can't tell because I don't have the two of them compare side by side, but I don't hear any self noise in the Pile appreciably, depending upon the microphone. If you're using it with a dynamic microphone, self noise of the converter makes a difference. If you're using it with a condenser microphone, it's probably negligible. But when I don't know if anybody else here on the panel has used the Shure as a USB converter for an XLR microphone, but the thing I don't like about it is that you have to boot up the to make any changes and like turning on and off phantom power or make any changes to the level or the side tone of the level of the headphones that is coming out. It has no controls on it whatsoever. So you have to boot up software to interface with it over the USB in order to control any of those levels.
Alexander?
Yeah, I really like this thing. It definitely sounds better than the older version, which wasn't terrible to begin with. I haven't compared it to the Pile, but I think I would much rather trust a Shure product at this price point. Yes, it'll be more money, but I like that it has a USB-C port. For me, I actually think, especially for something that I'm going to give to someone, I like that it doesn't have the dials on it, because I find, like, even with the MV7, that annoying touch strip for muting or changing gain, it's too easy to make a mistake. Then I don't like people constantly touching that stuff and messing with stuff. So I'd rather personally set the settings in the software and just leave it be than having the physical controls. Also, I think it would be hard to put physical controls on something that's just that small, that's basically intended to be a dongle, that it's just like a little stubby thing that plugs into the bottom of the microphone.
Next question.
Aaron Cody in St. Louis, Missouri is asking, Sweetwater sells a $100,000 mobile Church AVL bundle. At this price point, can you see any scenarios where this would be better than hiring a professional integrator?
Jesse?
Well, first, let's take a look at what this $100,000 bundle is, and then I'll say no. But let's get into it. So it has pretty much everything that you could imagine needing. Mixing boards, transport equipment, projectors, Blackmagic cameras, wireless microphone systems, speakers, just the everything but the kitchen sink, lenses, Apple Care for the Apple TV that comes with it, stage lighting. There's I would love it if we could get an actual honest answer from Sweetwater how many packages like this they've sold, because I can't imagine anybody just buying this as a set. You'd want it to be professionally integrated. You'd want to talk to the church. You'd want to talk to the building owners. You'd want to know everything about the pipeline before you would buy a kit like this. It's interesting to see a package like this, but I just can't imagine it being very useful in real life applications, because you'd want to switch bits and bobs out if you were doing this regularly and if it was for a specific build.
Next question.
Next question is from Gordon Lake in Los Angeles, California. Looking for the best AI avatar video generators, Synthesia and HeyGen seem to be the top two contenders. Is there anything out there better?
Oh, those are the two that I typically hear. 11 Labs could be another one to work there, but because you said specifically this generating it on its own, those are the top two. And then speaking of AI generator, and as we continue this series, I guess we're bringing a wrap up on our summer series there. But today we'll have Phil Palin with us, and tomorrow we'll be talking to the folks over at At Isadora with us. And then on Thursday, we have Todd Grimes coming back to us. And on Friday, our Friday fundamentals will be, you've got to check the schedule for the week to find out for that. And of course, on Saturday, we have our Q&A show. And if you are looking to volunteer, our new volunteers, that takes place as well. And then on Sunday, that is typically our introspection where we talk all things behind the scenes. It's not recorded, so you have to be there live. And for everything else, head over to officehours.global.